Hey, what's up, internet? Those that listen to the podcast know I've been anticipating a game called Gone Home for quite a while. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but a lot of people are now exploding about this game. Uh, I just want to drop some thoughts about it. However, I'm going to do my best to make this as spoiler-free a thing as I can because that is an interactive experience that works once really profoundly, and you need to check it out firsthand. You cannot have someone telling you what they found or what goes on or what the story's about or whatever, because it'll totally undermine everything that game does. Super great. So, that said, I'm going to try to kind of relate to you why I think it's kind of amazing, and then also just kind of go through maybe a few reasons why it's kind of like it's such a weird, delicate experience. Like, it is such an intimate experience that it's like so hard to not, like, you don't want to ruin it for somebody though, because you just had a great experience. So for example, I started playing yesterday, like pretty much, well, I mean, we recorded the podcast first, so like a couple hours after it came out. Just mesmerized, like having an amazing time. I'm like, oh man, this is great. I need to get Brittany to play this is so good. I've already looked around quite a bit, so I think that's fine. I'm gonna let Brittany take a crack at this. She needs to try it. She starts playing it and immediately starts noticing little things that I didn't catch. Starts finding things I didn't find, and I just start going like, "Oh no! I am now having my experience vicariously. This is terrible. This is not how this is supposed to be. Like, I'm the one supposed to be digging around through there. Like, I need to either go do something else, or we just need to, like, agree that I will, we will play it separately, you know? Like, you shouldn't watch this experience because it is not a movie. Like, it is not a narrative like that. It is an organic, like, you find the narrative in the environment, and that's exactly what you should do, you know? Like, that's exactly what video games can do that other stuff can't, right? Like, I don't know. I've been talking about The Shining a lot, for example. Like, let me just use that for a second. Like, it's completely different to walk around in the Overlook Hotel and, like, find stuff in it and then be like, oh, what happened here? Like, what's going on? Like, imagine that as opposed to, like, well, Stanley Kubrick's going to show you what you should see, you know? Like, Stanley Kubrick's going to guide you through here, show you what you want to see. Or Stephen King is going to, like, talk you through what these other characters see. In a video game, you are dropped right into that environment. You walk around, you find it. That is unique. That is a unique quality that video games have, and that someone is tapping into that as well as they are here is really great. I will say, though, it kind of sets video games up for this weird thing where it's like, because it's so much like a lived experience, playing it again ever is like deja vu or something. Like, it's like all wrong the second time through because you're like, well, now I know where everything is, so I can never re-experience like the story of that game, because the story of the game is someone comes away from like a year-long vacation, arrives at their family's new house, and then has to discover everything. Like, they very brilliantly think through, like, all right, the player will be playing it for the first time, so they have no idea what's going on. This is why amnesia is such a popular thing in video games, because video game developers kind of need to explain why you don't know where stuff is that this person who's been living in this world for decades or whatever should know. So this is, like, one of the most creative solutions to that problem I have seen, in that, like, okay, here's, like, a real-world, like, disorienting thing that could happen. That isn't, I got hit on the head, or I was in some crazy nuclear meltdown or something. Like, that, you know, like, there's no goofy layer to it. It is, like, pretty relatable experience. Like, I don't want to get into exactly, like, what happens to the character you play as and, like, what they find or whatever, but I would actually akin the experience I had with Gone Home to, like, actual things that happened in my life. Like, there was an uncle in British Columbia who had, like, this giant basement full of, like, boxes and just weird old stuff, and, like, I wanted to explore it so bad. You know, like, we would visit there annually, and every year I'd just be like, oh man, what's in there? And, like, start looking around and finding weird old stuff, and then, get caught and thrown out of there. 'Cause it's like, what are you doing nosing around? Fair enough. I was a kid. But, or like, like you're house sitting for somebody and you're just like, and you like see a note on their fridge or something. Like, you get a sense of who that person is just by being in their environment. So you kind of just get to read little scraps of paper lying around, kind of see what they own and where they put things and all that. And your mind is such an amazing imagination tool, and like Gone Home sets you up to just kind of go down those paths, just kind of like put together the narrative in your own head. And I don't know, like I'm trying to think, like I know there's got to be like like you can kind of see the way they kind of only put certain pieces of the narrative along the path and certain points, like there's still a dramatic arc to that experience, but it feels so organic, like it's like, oh, well, I noticed that. I saw this here, and then I saw this other part here, and then I pieced those two together. And in theory, you could have encountered those in the reverse order. You could have missed one, but then later there might be a different one. There's probably stuff I didn't see ever. Like there was definitely a few areas of the environment where I just kind of was like, I'm a little spooked out. I don't know why. I don't like this part of this house is reminding me of my house. I don't know. Like I knew I was missing stuff, but I kind of wanted it to feel even more elaborate, because like they also use the conceit of they've just moved. So kind of like my house, like I'm looking at a pile of boxes over here right now. There's stuff that's not put out, which is a great way to kind of like be like, well, we can't detail the environment as like just sumptuously as someone usually does, but we could detail a newly moved in house and have it filled with stuff. Like compared to your average game, there's just stuff everywhere, and you can like grab it and look at it and poke around. Like it's pretty impressive the amount of stuff you can kind of just examine. I'm maybe a little like, it's kind of a thing we've talked about on Indie Talks podcast over on Pixel Response, but with Calvin French specifically, of like that kind of, if an environment is so engaging that like you can't interact with it in some ways, it kind of makes it stand out a little bit. And like there's a few instances that like, like you'll find a really nice easy chair or something, but you can't really sit in it, for example. But I think the rationale for that is you are still playing a written character, so that character is like not going to do that because they want to know what's going on. Like they're curious about what's happening, and that's what they want to do. So I can forgive it that for sure. Like that's not an important thing. Like you could behave irrationally in like the house if you wanted to. Like I was definitely thinking like, wait, what if I just stood here for like 8 hours? Would something happen? It's like, probably not. Like they probably wouldn't account for that because that's really not what you're supposed to be doing. But they set you up with enough pieces where you genuinely want to explore that environment. That's really cool. And they also, like, yeah, it's such a personally designed space. Like, you can just tell that this is, like, a small team of people who are definitely putting their own lived experience in there, like, little details from their houses, bands they liked, stuff like that. Or, like, at the very least, all agreed upon and wrote a script. Like, the way this is a game script, like, the way they kind of make the environment a narrative experience is really incredible. Like, and that there's, like, they proudly proclaim on the description page, there's, like, no combat in this game. There's no, like, puzzles. It is not that. Like, just explore this house at your own pace. Go for it. And even though it's, like, an experience, I think you can only really have the, like, full wonder of it once in your entire life, because it is so designed, like, it's not randomized at all. There's nothing you can do to kind of, like, shuffle the stuff around. Like, it is just, like, it is a one-shot deal. It is an extraordinary one-shot deal. Like, it is, like, you live an experience that I have not had firsthand. Like, you live that experience, and it'll probably just seep into the memory, like, it'll just be there as, like, a thing I did and, like, a unique thing. And, like, I want to share this experience with other people, right? Like, I still want other people to play it. It's just, if I see them playing it, at least once, before the narrative was complete for myself, seeing someone else play it was just, like, weird and frustrating, because you want to be the one unearthing the story that this house has to tell. And yeah, and like divulging more about like what the core narrative is really about would just be kind of a crime against games. That would be bad. That'd be really uncool. So it's like $20 on Steam. It's launch sale right now still. It is absolutely worth that price of admission. It is a unique, really well-crafted little thing that people are going to be talking about it. Like, that's the thing. Like, getting out ahead of it maybe a little tiny bit, but, like, the 10s are already starting to flow in. People are going to be talking about this game in relation to Game of the Year stuff. Like, this is going to be a cited thing, and it deserves it. And you owe it to yourself to know what's going on. Check it out. I'm trying to think if, like, comparing to other games would be good or bad. I'm just not going to do it. That's all I got for now. I'm going to obviously be writing and talking about it more in the coming days and weeks and whatever, but Gone Home, check it out. I hope this has been informative and not destructive to the thing. Anyway.